Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm here in downtown Stockholm where it's about midnight and everyone's going crazy for the World Cup because Sweden is playing. But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about this guy, the Xperia 1 Mark 8 in beautiful garnet red. And this video is going to be a typical video comparing it to different flagships from the Chinese, Apple, Xiaomi, Vivo, or Samsung, Apple, Google. I really want to discuss whether it's worth upgrading from a previous Xperia to the 1 Mark 8. If you're coming from a Mark 7, really the only difference is the upgraded telephoto sensor. And considering the phone costs about 1,600 euros, that's a lot of money for a single sensor upgrade. Now, I'm filming this on Xperia 1 Mark 5, and I want to compare that phone to this guy. Even though you will have better telephoto and ultra-wide sensors on the 1 Mark 8, the main sensor is still the same. So I'm going to compare both phones across all three lenses to see how big of a difference is it from the Mark 5 to the Mark 8. So I'm going to first start with the nighttime video here, shooting around and walking around in Stockholm, and I'll compare performance in low light and just direct light as it is right now. So I hope you enjoy the video. Let me know what you think. Thanks. So in this comparison of the main sensor, what immediately jumps out to me is that the Mark 8 is sharper, but it may be due to the fact that in mixed lighting, shadow detail is lost more compared to the Mark 5. However, since the Mark 5 is doing more aggressive processing to raise those shadows, it does suffer somewhat from that oil painting effect with a loss in detail. The Mark 8 better handle the highlights. As you can see in the street lamps, the Mark 5 is more blown out. Looking at pavement, you notice a slight red shift in the Mark 5, whereas in the Mark 8, there's a green shift. The Mark 8 did perform better when balancing dynamic range, as you can see in the hotel signage, but it isn't always consistent as you see in a later comparison. Moving on to the selfie cam, the same general observations apply. The Mark 8 is slightly greener, it's sharper, and I think the biggest takeaway from this is that Sony made some effort to update the processing on the front-facing camera, which uses a tiny sensor, and it's the same sensor used across the last 4 Xperias, I believe, even going back all the way to the Xperia 1 Mark 4. So some improvement is definitely appreciated, even if I wish that Sony would actually include a new sensor for the front-facing camera. Moving on to the telephoto lens of the Xperia 1 Mark 5, what else can be said that hasn't already? It's trash. It's low in detail, low contrast, the image is soft, and really it's only serviceable in the brightest of conditions. I will give credit to Sony for trying something innovative by having an optical zoom within a phone of this size, but at this point in 2026, it's showing its age, and I would gladly take the upgrade on the Mark 8, even though it's a fixed lens, over having a unique technology that isn't really usable at all in most situations. The Mark 8 is significantly better in all aspects, and it really is something to behold, at least compared to previous Xperias. The Chinese flagships definitely have better zoom lenses on paper, but if you're coming from Xperia, it'll be a very welcome upgrade. Here's another nighttime comparison in a different location. So the first thing you notice is that the framing is slightly off between both phones, and that's because on the Mark 5 I was able to use the vlogging kit. So I was able to see exactly where the camera was pointing. On the Mark 8, the vlogging kit is no longer supported. However, you can use third-party USB-C monitors that provide the same functionality. Hopefully though, you can see between both devices that at least in strong lights, that the color balance, the white balance is very similar, if not is likely the same. However, where I do see differences are when it comes to low light in the dark areas, where on the Mark 5 it tends to retain the shadows a bit better in my opinion, even if it's slightly grainier. In addition, the Mark 5 did a better job of keeping my face in focus, although that could be due to the fact that my hand on the Mark 8 was just shifting somewhat more because I can't see where I'm shooting. All this being said, I think it's clear that there isn't much difference between the Mark V and the Mark 8, at least when it comes to the main sensor. The marginal differences in white balance and shadow crush may come down to personal preference. That's it for now, but stay tuned for part 2 as it goes with the photo comparison. Thanks again for watching.